Hey, Mike, it's Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, I've never seen that happen before, but was able to just go through and regenerate all the keys, and everything is working fine now for sure.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. And we are streaming now, just so everyone is aware, because I'm a little afraid to take it off.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, John. How are you?
Oh, it says live on YouTube, so I think that's a good sign.
Can we get started?
I'm just checking to make sure. Is Denise on?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay. So I'd like to call this meeting back to order for June 22nd, 2020. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brand,
Here.
Councilman Canoia,
Here.
Councilman Kithis,
Here.
Councilwoman Sierra,
here.
Councilman Susie,
You're muted.
Here.
Councilman Ward,
Here.
President Gendron.
Here. And we are back live now. Mike, I believe everything is streaming properly now.
Yeah, that is correct. Thanks everyone for your patience.
Thank you. And Solicitor, just so that you're aware, the City Council did unanimously ratify the firefighters' contract. You weren't on when we did that, but there were no comments or questions by any of the councilors, so we moved on with passage. So just so that I wanted to make sure you were aware before we leave that item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So moving on, Madam Clerk, to the item number 3. I'll let you reintroduce.
Discussion amending the comprehensive plan of the city of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, ordinance 20033.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Director Gibbs, do you have somebody that will be speaking on this, or Mr. Proft, are you going to take this one, or?
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss it.
Okay. And
So would you
Scott,
like me to?
I would. I just want to let Scott know he's muted. Okay, very good. Very good, Scott. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so would you just like me to give a brief description of what the ordinance is?
Sure.
Brief or detailed, I think there'll be some questions, so go ahead.
Okay, so this is the purpose of this comprehensive plan amendment is to change the future land use map of the comprehensive plan from on a particular parcel on Elm Street. The parcel is 3676. From a mixed use to industrial commercial land use to a high density residential land use. After amending the comprehensive plan in this way, a zoning ordinance amendment would also be taken up to change the zone, and that'd be the next thing that's on the agenda tonight, to change the zone from MU2 to R4. So in the end, these two ordinances that you're looking at tonight, the purpose is to change the use on parcel 3676 from a industrial / commercial use to a R4 high density residential. This came about when the property owner, actually not the property owner, a prospective developer of parcel 3676 approached the planning department to request that 3676 be rezoned from MU2 to R4. This property owner, Ed Boschman, or Boschman, I'm not actually sure the correct pronunciation, but he owns the parcel directly to the south of this one, and his intention would be, if this zone change went through, to purchase the parcel in question, 3676, and then subdivide the lots so that 3 single-family residential homes could be constructed on the parcel. The planning department agreed with his reasoning for wanting to do this. These parcels were rezoned MU2, I believe, from R4 not so long ago, maybe in, I can't remember now, 2015 or 2016. But this particular parcel it was rezoned with a group of other parcels to the MU2 zone. And this particular parcel, I think, isn't a logical fit to have been rezoned with those other parcels. There's a natural break between it and the parcels to the northeast of it, which are also zoned MU2. And that break is about a 30-foot kind of steep slope, which makes this parcel kind of oriented much more with the residential parcels on Elm Street compared to the mixed-use parcels on Burnside Avenue. If a commercial or industrial use was on parcel 3676, it'd be the only such use along Elm Street there, and really would kind of stand out as something different in that neighborhood. So I'm not sure what the intention was, including this parcel with the rest of the rezoning effort in this area to have some mixed use 2 zoning, which generally along Burnside Avenue I think was a good idea. If it was kind of an oversight of the geography and where this parcel was fronting. But when you look into it, it seems a little illogical, and that the land use wouldn't be compatible with the surrounding properties.
But Mr. Proft, just out of curiosity, were those the lots that were all rezoned to be used with the former dairy that was on Burnside?
Honestly, not sure.
Okay.
The lots in question are north of Robinson Street and west of Burnside Avenue. So it's kind of just a collection of some already industrial uses and then some high density residential units, kind of the tenement style housing, which the city decided that area would be more appropriate for commercial and industrial use.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Proft regarding this or the next? We can discuss the two together, I guess, but any questions for Mr. Proft?
Council President.
Councilman Canoyer.
First, thank you, Mr. Proft, for that overview. And I just want to clarify, because it broke up a little bit. The lot in question, 3676, is my understanding correct in that this was previously zoned R4 and this got caught up in the rezoning we did about a year or so ago?
That's correct.
Okay, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Proft? Mr. Proft, I have another question. The other connecting lots that are neighboring this particular lot, what are those currently zoned as?
So the Peters River is directly to the north. And then north of that is, I'm not sure of the name of the mill, but it's a big converted mill building that's just off of where Social and Clinton Street meet. And then Social kind of heads north from there. There's a big converted mill building, which is high density residential. To the west across Elm Street is all high density R4 residential. And to the south is all high density R4 and partially to the east is as well. So the only place that it is not connected to this R4 residential zone is to the northeast, which is the parcels that were rezoned to MU2 that we just discussed.
Which goes up that steep grade behind the property.
That's right.
And you mentioned the remodeled or repurposed condos that are on Social Street. Those are also R4?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? So just out of an abundance of caution, Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to move on and introduce the next item, which is number 5. I'm sorry, number 4, so that we can have a discussion. They're both related, but I want to make sure we address them officially.
Okay. Discussion amending Code of Ordinances, City of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, Appendix C, entitled Zoning Map, Ordinance 20034.
All right, Mr. Proft, I know you just went through it and you gave a good explanation, but I just want to make sure if there's anything else that you would like to, or if the councilors have questions regarding this change. And do you by any chance have a map to share with us?
a map, like I could share my screen with you.
Yes.
Let me see if, give me a second.
Sure.
Just so you know, it's attached to the resolution in the agenda packet that's out there.
Yeah, it would be good to share it so that everybody can see it if they're watching, if I can find it quickly. So just give me 1 second.
No, or Mike, do you have the ability do you have the agenda in front of you, Mike?
I can have it up very quickly.
Because in the agenda, the link that takes you to 20034 does show the map, and I know you have the ability to share screens.
Let me pull it up right now.
I had it on the on a former planning board meeting, so I'm just pulling it up from that meeting.
Okay.
On
Well,
the
whoever
web.
gets it first.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll bring up the zone change proposed map.
Perfect.
Okay, so now let
Is
me
it-
see if I can
Is that
share
the right
my-
map?
Mike,
Yep.
Kevin
Good.
pulled it up.
No, I think Mike pulled it up.
Oh, Mike, you got,
So
okay.
that's good. So you can see that this is the proposed zone. The reason that it's pink on the streets around it is just because when I made the GIS map, I couldn't figure out how to switch that. So the street along Elm Street there should be yellow and partially along the road behind Elm Street. But you can see that it's mostly surrounded by this yellow R4 zone. And in the existing conditions map, which I don't think you have to bring up, Mike, you can just imagine the red parcel in question, the one with the red outline around it, is pink, like the MU2 zones to the northeast of it. Mike, do you want to pull up the, is the topographic map included in this packet?
It is not.
Okay, well,
This is the other one, it looks like. I don't know if that's.
yeah, so that's the existing conditions where that parcel is pink to match the MU2 zones above it.
Okay.
The topographic map basically just shows a very steep slope around the eastern property line for 3676 and 3678 below it, which makes construction on the Robinson Street side kind of impossible as the frontage street, which is what would be logical if you were trying to match it with the MU2 zones near it. Instead, the logical place to build will be right along the Elm Street frontage where all of the residential units are. Just a couple more things to talk about. When the planning board was looking at this, we did review it for consistency with the comprehensive plan and found in the findings of fact that they put together that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan. It protects the Blackstone River tributaries by decreasing the intensity of the zoning district from a possibly industrial parcel to a residential parcel. And since it's right next to the Peters River, that's likely good for water quality. It encourages workforce style housing for middle income residents. These are going to be relatively small lots and relatively small homes, I think around 2,000 square feet each. They found that the proposal promotes small-scale development in existing neighborhoods, which is encouraged, that it directs development to locations where there's already existing infrastructure, so there's no need for the city to take over and maintain over the long term new utilities or streets. And then in the case of the zoning ordinance here, it will align the zoning ordinance with the new future land use map after the comprehensive plan amendment is accepted. It also did a review to ensure that the proposal was consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance. And the kind of consistencies included that it provides a range of uses and intensities of use appropriate to the character of the city. That because of its size and topography and location, the current use, MU2, is probably unlikely to yield a desirable outcome in that neighborhood. That it probably reduces the potential for noise pollution or air pollution or stormwater pollution in the neighborhood by rezoning this possibly commercial or industrial use to a residential use. And then again, promoting a balance of housing choices for income levels, all income levels. I think that the city is interested in developing more kind of single family, but not only single family kind of affordable housing, you know, where a middle income earner can, you know, get maybe a starter home here or something. You know, rather than a lot of times when you see single family housing being built now, it's like 4,500 square foot homes and kind of unattainable for the average working family. So the planning board was positive about this proposal for those reasons and made a positive recommendation for both the comprehensive plan amendment and the zoning amendment. And the reason you need both of them is because in order to change your in order to change a zoning district, it has to match a land use map that's produced in the comprehensive plan. And right now, our comprehensive plan map, I believe, may have this as an MU2. Yeah, that's correct. As a mixed use industrial commercial. So we have to change it in the comprehensive plan first so that we can match the zoning to the new future land use map. And that's the typical way that that's the typical way that you do these.
Okay. Mike, I think if we're all set with the map, you can bring us back to the live screen. And Mr. Proft, I think that if, does anyone else have questions for Mr. Proft? I think he was pretty detailed in his explanation, so I don't know that anyone has questions. I would like to thank you for taking the time and giving us a good explanation so that we can know what we're moving forward with. I will work with the city clerk and we'll set up the public hearing and the advertising requirements, and we'll let you know when that'll be back on the agenda. Obviously, we're gonna have to do the public hearing separate from the next meeting.
Yeah. One item to consider when you're setting up the public hearing is that the public hearing has to be advertised 3 consecutive weeks in the paper. I don't know if that's usually the way that public hearings are advertised to the city council, but you have to schedule it far enough in advance to allow for the 3 weeks of advertising to occur.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. If we can look at the calendar after and we'll figure that out
Okay.
offline. Thank you. All set, Mr. Proft?
Yep. Thank you for having me.
I thank you for taking the time. You have yourself a good evening. You're welcome to stay if you want to listen.
Okay. Thanks.
Madam Clerk, if you can move on to the next agenda item.
Discussion amending Code of Ordinance, City of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, Appendix, whoops, sorry. Yeah, Appendix C. No, zoning, Section 12.5, Downtown Overlay District, Ordinance 20036.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Susie, this is your baby. If you want to give us an explanation of what's going on here. You got to unmute yourself, though.
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
This is an ordinance that I wanted to actually introduce several months back, of course, right before we got hit with the pandemic stuff. So pretty self-explanatory, especially if you look at the second whereas in this piece, where it says the Woonsocket City Council established the Downtown Overlay District to confer additional options for development and land use in the Main Street area. I'm sorry, the next one. And the intent to allow additional permitted uses that encourages further growth and the concentration of art, culture, and entertainment in a pleasant, walkable district. So with that in mind, if we're trying to create something here, and I think we have to all believe that, I think over time, this district could be, I think, something special. The historical components are still there. We do need time to make sure we get some new investors and new people, eventually owning these buildings that are not moving or are stagnated. But I think with the help of the opportunity zones and also a long-term approach of what we allow in this district, I think it can only reap benefits down the line. So I did run this by our solicitor. He had some input because actually the one I had was a little bit more restrictive, but I think what we have here is something that is acceptable. I think John could concur that there's nothing illegal here and we're not going to get in trouble. But I think we set a precedence in this district that for future growth and future uses that I think line up with the district that you guys created, and I'm certainly part of support wise. That's really what it's here for.
Okay. Are there any questions for Councilman Susi regarding this ordinance?
Or John, yeah.
Or John, yeah. I just have one question for the solicitor or for you, Councilman, whichever way. When it talks about rooming, lodging, and boarding houses, are those? What about the establishments that already exist?
I think they're grandfathered.
They're grandfathered in, Mr. President. Anything that's on this list that's already there is grandfathered in.
So even if they change ownership, the use is it continues.
It runs with the use, not the ownership. It runs with
Okay.
Yeah, which is, and I did have discussions with, of course, Kathy, the stadium theater director, and they're right next door to a rooming boarding house, and I urge all of you to maybe have a conversation someday with her and just know that there's real issues, and especially in a district like with a walkable district with the theater and schools and that kind of thing involved. So it's it won't take those away, but hopefully over time it will limit that, and we can see some new opportunities pop up.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Councilman Susi or for Solicitor DeSimone?
Council President, it's Jim Canoyer.
Councilman Canoyer.
Councilman Susi and or Solicitor, I don't have in front of me the most up-to-date zoning ordinance, but I know we did make an amendment. I think you alluded to it, Councilman Susi. We made some amendments, or at least an amendment not so long ago in connection with the live work units.
Right. Yeah.
That's
actually stated in one of these. It's so it does allow for the first floor living if it's a work use unit. And I think we already had that on the books.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you, and I understand what number 5.
This doesn't affect that.
All right, it doesn't. I just want to make sure we don't end up, and I don't have it in front of me, and it doesn't really matter at the moment because we're not taking a vote on this, and we'll have time to look. But
right,
I just want to make sure that this doesn't in any way, shape, or form change what we already amended previously. I think this just makes clear that they're allowable. But okay.
Yeah, this is supplemental to whatever we did before. And Carl Johnson looked at this as well.
Yep.
So, Councilman Canoyer.
Yes.
You were starting to say something regarding live work units.
Yes.
In the ordinance that we had passed, I believe it was like 19054 or something. It was something like that. When we passed that, I thought we were specific to exclude live work units on the street level, specifically to avoid that. Is your reading that this would now allow live work units?
John, I don't think that's right, Kev. I mean, Dan. I think John DeSimone could clarify that.
Yeah, no, this doesn't affect what we've already done. And this prohibits residential units.
Yeah, this prohibits.
Oh, I thought, okay, Jim, I
So
thought,
everything listed, Mr. President, from 1 through 5 is prohibitory. It's not allowing it, it's prohibiting it.
okay, well, I just, when Councilman Canoyer started talking, I thought he was saying that his reading was it was allowing it, and I know that there was a lot of concern. The mayor had even chimed in about not, the way that we worded that ordinance. So I didn't want to backpedal and undo what we had already done. So this does not do that.
No, and I'll make
Okay.
sure that Kyle checks it again, but I had Kyle look at it already.
Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, Council President?
Yes, Councilman Canoyer.
Yeah, so number 5, residential units are prohibited in a street level, except live work units. So,
Right,
so
which is what you
solicitor-
did. Yeah,
yeah, so to the council president's point,
That sounds like it's allowing them.
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
All right.
But
I'll
can I-
stop talking.
Council President, can I say something? This is Kevin Proft.
Councilman Canoyer, are you all set?
I am, yeah, I guess.
Mr. Proft, go ahead. I'll go back to Councilman Canoyer.
I think in my conversations with Carl, and I think we should just check this with Carl Johnson, but I think that live work units are allowed on the first floor, but the live portion has to be in the rear of the building. So the street frontage, where you want the active space would be the commercial space. And then if it was a live work unit, the kind of living space would be at the rear of the unit. That's my understanding.
and that's my understanding as well. There's a definition for that live work unit, and I think that's what Kevin's alluding to. But we will definitely double check it because,
Good.
I know what the council's intention was on the other amendment.
Okay, I just want to make sure that this doesn't undo what we carefully did in the last one. Okay,
Yeah.
that's enough now until I'm trying to pull it up. It won't pull up. That I can't get it to come up, so. All right, Councilman Canoyer. Councilman Canoyer, you had the floor.
Yeah, no, that's fine, as long as we check it, because to your point, Council President, it specifically says not street level in the ordinance that we had done previously. So I just want to make sure we're not, I want to make sure we don't have a conflict, and I appreciate that Kyle checked it, but the solicitor should check it as well, just in case Kyle missed something. I know he's very good at researching this stuff, particularly the general laws, but just double check this.
Yes, no, and it's
We
always good.
absolutely- I absolutely will.
Thank you.
And Councilman Canoyer, thank you for pointing that out. You did very well explaining your point. Thank you. Anything else regarding 20036? Questions for the sponsor or the solicitor? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a vote to go into executive session. I will ask before we get the motion to go into executive session, I would like to explain. Mr. O'Connell will be going through the list of participants, and the only people that will be allowed in is the administration, people who the administration has asked to stay on, the city clerk, the solicitor, and the city council. So are we set to go into executive session? We will be coming back out of executive session and going live again on YouTube, just to announce any votes or anything like that. So if anyone is watching, please stay tuned. You'll be looking at a blank screen, but we'll be back. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion, Susie.
Motion made by Councilman Susi to go into executive session under 42-46-5A6.
Second, John.
Second by Councilman Ward. All those in favor, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Crean,
Yes.
Councilman Canoyer,
Yes.
Councilman Kifis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
Yes.
Councilman Susi,
Yes.
Councilman Ward,
Yes.
Councilman Ward, yeah.
President Gendron.
Yes. And now we are going into executive session. Mike, if I look at the